Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 14. Hey Junkie, what's up? Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Joining me today is Olivier Bernhard, and Olivier is a former pro triathlete who has won Ironman Switzerland 4 times. He is also a triple duathlon world champion, and he unfortunately had to cut his career a bit short due to a lot of running issues, which caused him to start playing with running shoes after his retirement, and all that led basically to what we now know as On Running Shoes. Olivier, for those of us who don't know you, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your sporting background and how you ended up doing triathlons?
Look, I mean, I've always loved doing sports, especially running. And as a kid, maybe more off than off-road. And at the age of 19, I traveled to Canada, spent a couple of months to go to school. And it was a September day, I remember I read an article in the newspaper about 2 athletes fighting it out in Kona again that year. And it was a great read. And it was all about Mark Allen and Dave Scott, which both of those athletes I didn't even know by that time. But I was triggered just because, I often went to school, I often biked to school, but I did not have a clue how to swim. So the same day I went to a sports shop and bought some swimsuit and the goggle and the book How to Learn to Swim. And it was probably the day I became a triathlete.
Oh, cool. So you learned to swim yourself?
Yeah, for a long time, maybe too long, because by then I thought maybe that's the way to go, because where, that area I come from in Switzerland, there's not so many swimming pools and teachers, and that was just the way to go until I managed to become, a few years later, I actually became Swiss champion, and then I ended up in the Swiss Association. And that helped heaps then. That gave me a little boost in swimming after that.
So how old were you when you picked up the sport?
I was 18, 19 years old. Yeah. And then 22 or 21, I think I became the first time Swiss champion. And shortly after that, I won the European triathlon circuit. And that was all probably so when I realized, that of course I was world champion. There was no Olympic time. That was a couple of years before. But there was also, coming up, looking that Sydney was coming up in a few years. I knew that I have to decide, and I wasn't the strongest swimmer, and I knew that it's going to be on the bike, and I knew that if I lose 30, 40 seconds, it's going to be tough to make it up on the bike or on the run. So I decided to go right there to go a longer distance.
Okay, cool. Sorry, but this is a really bad connection. I lost you a couple of times there during that answer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. I don't know what it is. But yeah, I'll try to clean it up and edit this piece out. So you went on to race as a pro there for about 10 years, and you've won Zofingen duathlon 8 times, Ironman Switzerland 4 times, and you placed in many other races, like including a 15 Kona. Can you tell us a bit about your most memorable races and maybe also your biggest disappointments?
For sure, I think the most memorable race was winning Zofingen for the first time. I really still remember at the press conference a couple weeks ahead into the race, I was asked by the race organizer, so you're going to take the step into the steps of Mark Allen and stuff. And so I couldn't really, recover from laughing, because I thought I'm a young kid just trying to make the first time a long distance. And in my training, I met a bike over 100 pace, and this race 150. So please just let me have a shot. And then 3 weeks later, I win it, and I was actually just about 10 seconds slower than Mark Allen the year before. And that was so surprising to me that, surprising at one time, but then again, on the other hand, it was just the confirmation that this was my distance. my distances. And still, surfing was without the swimming. And I knew that in my heart, I wasn't a duathlete. I was a triathlete, even if my swimming wasn't the strongest. And maybe that, and also because the heat and humidity in Kona at Ironman Hawaii never suited me that well. And, it's not nagging me that, I stopped doing triathlon 10 years ago. That's when I quit the sport. But it's just one thing I've never really achieved is winning or coming top 3 in Kona, even though doing a lot of tests and training camps, going into those final weeks of the World Championship, I knew that I was in top shape, but I was never ever able to really show my true performance in Kona. And that's probably the biggest disappointment of my career.
Okay. So you retired as a pro athlete then in 2005, and I guess this sort of marks also the start of the on-running story. Can you tell us a bit about what made you start developing your own shoe and how you came up with the idea of what you guys now call Cloudtec, which is like the series of rubber loops that you have on the soles that are so typical for on shoes?
Yeah, look, there were different reasons that triggered the start of on. I think in first place it was that for the last 3, maybe 4 years of my career, I suffered Achilles tendon inflammation, just severe problems on left side and right side, and left side again, very confusing, and that was not a nice experience. I never really got rid of that. Even when I stopped being an athlete or pro athlete, elite athlete. And then another reason that was also triggering me just to go maybe that direction or to be open was that, now when I look back 15 years, there's been innovation in the running shoe market. But, like 30 years ago or 25 years ago, there was almost all running shoes looked the same. Black outsole, white midsole, white upper, maybe a couple stripes, colored stripes. That was it. And the logo of the running brand on it. And I thought, there might be still a lot of space for true innovation in running shoes. And the looks. I always thought, as I mentioned, they just look all the same. And back to your question, how did I came up, or how it was really the story? How did I connect? And it was a few things. Again, also there as a kid, I always loved to run on fresh cut grass, but of course with no shoes on. I just loved that sensation, that strong sensation, was just memorized, and was not able to find that in any running shoe out there. The question was, how can I translate this fantastic sensation into a running shoe? And in 2005, that was, markedly, it was my last year being an elite athlete. I was approached by an engineer and also passionate runner himself to test his idea of a new running system, he called it by then. And he glued on some funny rubber pieces that almost looked like cut garden hose rings.
Okay.
And I instantly liked the sensation when I went for a short ride with it. And surprisingly, that sensation back then reminded me a lot of those days back when I was a kid. That barefoot running on soft soil. And the foot, I just realized instantly that the foot has got up. It was triggered to have all its freedom. Was able to do what it could do best, just be efficient, and there were no boundaries in that system. And from that day on, I just started to, as a test runner, that it all started as a test runner, and I started to bring my ideas into that shoe. And actually, as I mentioned, it was not my idea, my innovation, but out of that idea of that runner, that passionate runner and engineer, I developed a running shoe.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So how much time did it take you between that first prototype that you tested and then the actual launching of On?
First prototype, that was about 205, 206, and then we had our first shoes in the market, 210. But I wouldn't even call, still now, we don't call them prototypes, the shoes we really built and glue and drill on outsoles. We call them monsters because that's how they look like. All you have to do is just go run, and if you get the right sensation out of the shoes, then we start thinking about building prototypes. So that's why it might look long, but I guess then we were at the very beginning and didn't know anything about running shoes. That was just the very start of it. So in 2010, we had the first running shoes in some stores, some retailers in Switzerland.
Yeah, cool. Let's get into a bit more detail about the shoe and talk foot strike and shock absorption, because Cloudtec is able to absorb both the vertical and the horizontal shock of a foot strike, whereas traditional shoes normally only take care of the vertical. Can you explain why this is better for a runner?
I guess to this question, I think it's never wrong to look at nature. Look at the cat. I look at cats, how they move. I mean, they have soft paws that are able to compress like 3D pillows, assuring best shock absorption, translating into a rigid takeoff once they are compressed. So like cats, we do not only move up and down. Like I see most of the running shoes are built just for jumping instead of going into a direction, built for motion. So going from A to B. And they're taking mostly care of the vertical shock, and we have built or have been able to build a system that takes care of the horizontal and vertical shock at the same time. And like cats, if your running shoe can take the horizontal shock, your joints and muscle will have to deal with it.
Yeah, all right. A lot of runners who run with the on shoe say that they feel like running on sand during the foot strike, which I mean is a good thing. It absorbs the shock really, really well. But then the push-off is like running on concrete. Is that because there's a bit of a spring system in that Cloudtec that sort of propels you forward?
I do not believe in energy return. If you're talking, the spring, I know that a lot of, we get this feedback very often when we are at expos, people getting into shoes and especially ladies jumping up and down saying, wow, I like this springy feeling and it's like running on clouds, That's actually why we still have this claim. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I don't believe very much in energy return. It's just how you deal with the energies that are there. We have gravity. So how do you overcome gravity once you hit the road, especially the hard tarmac? What do you do? And again, we have the 3-dimensional cushioning. And probably we also have the only cushioning that is only there when you need it. And that is upon landing, right? Yeah. So after landing, the cardam elements in heel area, but also forefoot will be closed and ensure a swift and efficient takeoff. And I think that's probably just a simple explanation of our differentiation to any other running shoes on the market.
Yeah. Okay, talk a bit about the different shoes you have in the range and what athletes should look for when selecting a shoe.
Looking at competitors, you often see that they go by, do you pronate, supinate, or do you have a strong foot? We at On, we have left that existing paradigms because we believe, or maybe especially I believe very much, as a former athlete and coach, that you should actually help a runner, motivate him, so to go from one level to the next level and the next level. Once you have, so you can evolve over time. For example, with a competitor, once a retailer tells you you're a pronator, you get the one shoe and you stay a pronator for life. At On, that's different. You start with a shoe, maybe you're a little overweight, you haven't been running for 5 or even 10 years, then we would give you the Cloud Runner. You start with the Cloud Runner to build your ligaments, your tendons, obviously your muscle, your lungs, your heart, everything. And then once, you've grown out of this shoe and built up all those things, it's time for you to take the next step and get into the next shoe. So then you probably get into the Cloud Surfer and so on. So it's like a reward. Once you are able to go a longer distance, once you are able to train maybe 2 times, 3 times a week, you get rewarded by the next shoe, shoe, or let's say by the next level. of shoes you can choose for the gait you're running.
So what are the main differences then between it? Is the beginner shoe has a lot more absorption, and then the racers have a lot less?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's hard now on the radio, you don't see it, but it's all by the cavity, right? The larger the cavity, the more the traveling time. So for like the beginner shoe, we have a big cavity in the heel area, so you have a high shock absorption. But in the forefoot, then on the other hand, it's not that much of cushioning, so you have a rigid push-off, right? And so on. It's like the racing flat has the least cavities. So that takes a little bit of the shock, but is very like a sports car, a very low ride, and gives you a very swift and efficient takeoff.
Yeah, cool. Now, where can people get their hands on these shoes? Because it's a website, but you have a lot of retailers as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, mainly we built, our relationship with only with specialty retailers in the running area, and that's our main business. But then again, we are young, and we believe there's also room for online sales because there are a lot of black dots on the planet. We don't sell shoes, and I think that's fair enough that we serve those clients where we don't have any retailers.
Yeah, cool.
So you can get our shoes also online, www.on-running.com.
Yeah, cool. I'll make sure to put that in the show notes so people can click and get on the correct website.
Yeah.
Now, besides running on, and you're also coaching and doing public speaking. Now, one of the things I came across is that you talk about all the different factors that are responsible for success or failure in life. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. I mean, it's always I keep telling, as an endurance athlete, you have so much time to spend on a bike and running, and you have to think about different things, and you're going to solve a few problems and come up with some ideas. And to me, at the end, and racing for almost 15 years. Obviously, I've come up with a solution for myself, and I see that this solution or this key also works for other people, especially managers. And I call them the 4 C's. So it's control, confidence, challenge, and commitment. And I can give you a little key. I mean, if I talk about control, it's more about controlling your emotions. Do not let the emotions control you, right? I mean, it seems trivial, but it's true. Often we get controlled by emotions. We're not in the lead. We're not in the driver's seat anymore. And to me, a good example is when I was an athlete for years and years. When I did triathlons, those starts often are very early in the morning, usually 7 o'clock. So that's early, and lakes are usually cold, or seas. And then you get in the water, and I call it was a dialogue between the devil and the angel in me. And usually the devil would knock after 2 or 5 minutes, always, with every single Ironman. It would knock at my head and say, "Hey, Olivier, what are you doing? This is crap. I mean, everyone else is sitting, lying in bed, and not getting up the next 2 hours. Maybe some people are at church. Others are having breakfast with the family. What are you doing? You're fighting with $2,000 athletes just to stay alive, to get some oxygen." And I started debating with that devil, saying, yeah, but it's my profession. I have to, I need to earn money. And, it's just, I've trained for it until 1 year. And I think it was just about 2004. So just 1 or 2 years before I quit, I said, "Guy, just shut up. Let me do what I do best. And let's talk once I finished, let's talk after finish line." And of course, that devil doesn't come up at finish line anymore. So it's more like, you don't always have to have answers at the moment. Just it's okay to say not now, but come on later. And that devil actually never came back, So it's I always try to be polite, to answer stuff, and it's an emotion that came up, And I think it's very, very important you stay in the driver's seat with those things. And so confidence, on the other hand, is have confidence in your own abilities and self-confidence in dealing with others, also very important. Then the third C is challenge. I think as an athlete, you learn to see you actually have the ability to see tasks as challenges and not as threat, and you work on that daily. And love challenges because they're the spice in life. I mean, everything else would be boring, to me at least, after weeks and weeks of having no challenges and getting not challenged. And also, of course, not succeed is also good, because then you want to find out what do I have to change to get better next time.
Yeah, failure can be a really good motivator.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know how it's translated in English, but we have a saying in German. I think probably a translation that comes close is ships are the safest in the harbor, but that's not what they are built for. Mm-hmm. That's what I like saying. Yeah. And obviously the commitment. At the end, it's all about the commitment. You can do all the training and stuff, but you have to put all your will to always fully get involved and make the best efforts possible, especially when the circumstances are getting tough, right? So bringing this over to the management and to just people that lead companies has been very rewarding, because they actually, even if they're not athletes in no means, they talk the same language, because they're like us, they have to make their own decisions at the end of the day, and they don't have a team. It's not a teamwork at the end of the day. As a manager, you have to take the decision and to also take the responsibility.
Yeah, I guess you must be doing something right with those 4 C's, because you guys are booming very, very hard right now. So
thank you.
Kudos on you guys. Well, that's about all the time we have here today. Can you tell us maybe quickly how people can get in touch with you? Like, you have a Facebook, a Twitter, or an Instagram, or whatever?
I mean, of course, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, and I believe we also have Instagram at On Running. But look, I'm 46 and I feel like a dinosaur when it comes to dealing with the social media sometimes. So I'm close to distinction, I guess. It's the generation that is not so used to Facebook and all the social media. But you'll find, I think the best is just go on our website and you'll find all the other links about On, and then also from me as a person.
All right, cool.
But you always can get it on my email if you need some, if you want have some personal advice or have questions. That would be olivier@on-running.com.
All right, cool. I'll make sure to add it to the show notes. Anything else you want to plug?
No, that's fine. Thank you so much, Peter.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Olivier. It's been a pleasure.